Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Block Wars. So, uh, of course, you guys all know that last episode, uh, the Netherite and the Netherack had some major advances, and right now they both are pretty good allies, and there were some negotiations between the Moss and the, Netherack and Netherite, but now the war will kind of continue, I guess. So immediately, the uh, Netherack are going to put an end to the light, or to the normal prismarine, and this will kind of seem like a pretty aggressive move, and it is a pretty aggressive move, but it's for the sake of the Netherack Empire, Holy Netherack Empire, to make an aggressive move like this. And they will immediately be making further gains across the border between themselves and the Moss. They will try and launch a flanking attack, and this maneuver will hopefully give them the advantage that they will need to be able to unleash a decisive strike against the Moss. But the Moss have a decent amount of soldiers, so they are going to put the soldiers to use and set up a solid defense. The Holy Netherack are going to start their attack from their main side. And the Moss do damage the walls a little bit of the Netherack with some strikes and some soldiers, but it doesn't really pose that much of a threat. And the Holy Netherack start to prepare more soldiers. About 5 more to try and send them out to boost their numbers on the front lines. And they decide to send another battalion of 5 soldiers out to try and open up more of an offensive. Some of these soldiers die, so it wasn't that much of a success, but it does bolster their lines and hurt the Moss a small amount. And the Netherites will well, first I gotta do this. The Netherite they will try and build up their forces. So first, they will expand their territory a decent amount. And this is basically for the goal that they will gain more civilians so that they can gather more soldiers. Because you kind of need civilians to, or like a decent population to have a decent sized army. And they pretty quickly start gathering more soldiers and are definitely prepared for war. So they decide to deploy an extra 5 soldiers to this front. And an extra 5 soldiers to try and sabotage the harbor here. And they set up a solid attempt at an encirclement of the leaf, of the moss forces. The leaves are dead. I need to actually, I think I forgot a little bit about the leaves. Some of the leaf soldiers. Yeah, looks good. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, so they are trying to encircle a moss soldier. Which is actually going quite well. And they will potentially try and annex this if they push to here. And they will try and, of course, kill the soldier, and then they will try and push inward towards the more concentrated populations, and potentially outflank these Moss forces here. And the Moss are in a really bad position. So if you look at the map, sure, they have this massive force here, which is a ton of soldiers, but everywhere else, they are very spread out and have no concentrated forces, and that leaves the Netherite to set up forces to slam the Moss out of their territory. And of course, near the coastline, the Moss once again start getting a lot more soldiers. And this is really only the other place where the Moss have a lot of soldiers. They don't have many soldiers anywhere else. And this is a really, really bad position for the Moss to be in, because now they're outstretched and are being attacked from two sides. It's just really bad for them. And further down the line, the Netherites are successfully pushing against the Moss forces, so the Moss are having to draw some of their troops back to take up defensive positions against the Netherite. Actually, this is not spread out enough. But yeah, so that's what the Moss are trying to do. And it's not working out that well. The Moss are also trying to halt the Netherack that are advancing, but that's not working that well either. So they're in a very bad position. And recently, I haven't been showing that many tactical operations by any teams, because it's mostly just been about ground being taken. So now I'm trying to show a little bit more of that tactical side, and like flanking and stuff like that, and naval maneuvers. Well, I haven't really shown any naval maneuvers because the ocean's not very big yet, but eventually I might start showing a little bit of that. So just trying to take it a little bit slow right now, trying to get back to what I originally did. But meanwhile, the attack is kind of going successfully, or is pretty successful, and the Holy Netherack are trying to launch an attack upon the Moss from this direction. And now the Moss will take every last soldier they have in their barracks and lots of their soldiers kind of out in the wilderness kind of area or like settlement area, and they will deploy them to try and stop the offensives. But they are doing a poor job at it as they are positioning these troops very closely together. Their goal is basically to try and hit this force really hard and try and break the offensive in this direction, which could work, it could not. But the attack is not working that well for the Moss to try and break the offensives. And they're repositioning troops from other lines of defense to try and halt the Netherites' gain of ground. And so far, the attack by the Netherack is not going too well. They are killing a couple of the Moss soldiers, but they are losing a decent amount of their own. So they are forced to regroup back there, and their reinforcements have arrived, 5 troops, and they are right now preparing to launch a renewed offensive. And more troops are being gathered. Along with the general. And these forces will be dedicated to trying to break through these lines and potentially wrap around, if they succeed, to the back of the Moss's barracks and annex a lot of land. And the Netherites are making even further gains. Now killing the Moss soldier that was guarding this house. The Netherite did lose a soldier as well, but that honestly is not that big of an issue for them. And their commander or lieutenant or whatever you want to call him is pushing this offensive to try and gain as much ground as fast as possible. And is going quite well. The Netherite are gaining a little bit more ground, slightly below that position. Although it is extremely tough. And the Netherite do destroy a few houses on their way, so it's not looking too good for the civilians in this area. And the attack is inflicting losses upon both sides, of course. It is very dangerous for the moss, as this could potentially snap their territory in half. But meanwhile, the Netherack are launching their renewed offensive or attack, and they do take a little bit of land, killing a few, actually a lot, of moss soldiers. Now, one of the Netherack's generals or lieutenants is killed in combat, so the Netherack do suffer a few losses in their attempt to conquer Moss territory. And the Netherack offensive over here is finally going to start being bolstered with with 20 more soldiers, and this is a massive, massive attack there that they are planning. Specifically, bolstering forces near their border. And they launched the attack, immediately slamming the Moss forces with a massive, massive army. Well, not as massive as some of their armies have been, but still large. And the Moss immediately have to redirect soldiers to try and halt this offensive. And now the Moss are weakened along a lot of their fronts. They are trying to make a comeback, but are only getting a tad bit more. They're only really losing territory. Sure, they are slowing the amount of territory lost, but they are still definitely losing territory. And I'm pretty sure that's where I want to stop right now. The attack seems to be going very well for the uh, Netherack and the Netherite. And I will update the borders soon with new walls and stuff. But I hope you guys liked the video. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the next video. Bye.